Yesterday we tried to understand that direct and indirect taxation, and so if we talk about the importance of taxation, I told you that I talked about the advertisement by the government, right? That they are constructing bridges, roads, highways, railway tracks, and as not only the physical infrastructure but social infrastructure as well, like education, health. So government needs funds to carry out their functions, and those functions require these funds, and these funds are coming. What are the receipts of the government? What are the receipts of the government? Anyone? Or what is the income side of the government? What is the income side of the government? Anyone? What is the income of the government? Income tax, road tax. Okay. What else? If we talk in macro terms, taxation was part of that particular receipt. Yes, Panyam Krishna. Broadly, when we were discussing budget, then there were two components of the receipts. The receipt budget, revenue receipt, very good. And the other was capital receipts, very good. Right. So if you see that at that time we discussed that this taxation was part of a revenue receipt. Right. And this revenue receipt was basically comprising of taxes and non-taxes. Correct. So this, in comparison to these non-taxes, this is substantial. This is substantial. And if you try to understand on a more macro level, it is basically if you try to understand it from the present context, you will realize that uh, government is having a revenue receipt and capital receipt, right? And capital receipts were again of two types: debt creating, non-debt creating. Now, revenue receipts were comprising of taxes and non-taxes. Now, try to understand the present situation. Government, you can keep it apart because it is not substantial. This is substantial, right? The government has already taken a lot of debt, right? So if you see in the present times, the government has already, the middle class is already overburdened with the taxes, that is direct as well as indirect. Right. So if you see, government cannot go beyond this because already this class is overburdened. The persons who are paying the taxes are already overburdened. Government has already take away a lot of indirect taxes through the petroleum and that sort of thing, GST. So this scope is also no more available to the government. Now, government has already taken so much of debt. That's why you will see that government is left with one option, right? That is non-debt creating, that is disinvestment or asset monetization. So this you have to understand in totality. Actually, such things can be asked in exam, right? So you should be there should be clarity of all these things. So taxation, Out of the revenue receipt, it is one of the substantial part, right, out of total receipts, correct? And this part is the most reliable to the government because government knows that I'll be getting this part of component, right? Because this government, it's still not sure that how much of money will be they getting out of this disinvestment and asset monetization. Because as you see the past records, it has been observed that government has not attained the full targets, correct? So government require funds and taxation provide funds for carry out these functions, and it can be in the form of direct and indirect. Direct is paid directly by an individual, right? And a taxpayer pays direct tax to the government. Direct tax include income tax, property tax, taxes on assets, corporate tax. This is company tax paid by the company. It cannot be shifted to another individual, as I discussed yesterday, that you have to pay it directly to the government. It's the most popular direct tax. Indirect are not directly levied on the income of an individual, while it is levied on the expenses incurred by the individual. This tax is basically levied on the seller of goods, but finally it is being paid by the end consumer, as discussed in the case of medicine yesterday. Right. So many a times people used to say that everybody is paying the taxes. It's not like that, that only the people who are paying the direct taxes, but everyone is paying the taxes, right? So this is reason because everybody is paying the indirect tax, right? So if you see, this indirect tax is very much affecting the poor people. If this indirect tax increases, that means, for example, if you are purchasing a bread packet of 50 rupees and it is having the tax implication of 10 rupees, right? Then if it this tax increases to 15 rupees, then the poor will be most affected by increase of this 5 rupees, because if a person is rich, then there will be no effect on his income by increase of 5 rupees, but the poor is mostly affected by this indirect tax, right? Custom duty levied on imports, right? And the objective is to protect the domestic industries from the competition from abroad and to raise state revenues as well. It can be either specific or an ad valorem basis. Ad valorem basis means that it depends upon the value of goods, that is number of goods per goods. Minimum alternative tax, right? Minimum alternate tax. Uh, it is basically that if you see uh, that there are certain companies, imagine a company A. This company has a profits of, for example, 100 crores in a year. Right? When it is having the profits, but effectively what happens, this company finally pays zero tax. So how this company, despite having 100 crore profit, is paying zero tax? It is basically on the account of the loopholes in the income tax regime, right? For example, what these companies does, these companies are showing that they are having company B, and they show that company B is the sister concern of company A, and and this company B is showing losses, and the losses are to the extent that they show that this 100 crore is channelized to this. So effectively they says that the profit out of company A becomes zero, right? Now such companies which are, or they can use n number of loopholes, like they can say that we have transferred it to the any NGO, right? Or they can use n number of loopholes. Then these companies which are paying zero taxes despite having profits are said to be zero tax companies. This is zero tax companies. Now government is saying that this company A has to pay minimum amount of tax. It is compulsory for the company A to pay minimum amount of tax to the government of India, despite that they are technically have zero taxation liability. So the government will fix certain amount of its percentage. Like if they are having 100 crores profit, then they can say that this percentage will be 10% of the profit. Right? That means this company who is having the profit of 100 crores, despite showing their geo tax liability, will have to pay 10 crores rupees to the government. Right? This is called MAT. So MAT is very specific to those companies who are zero tax companies, right? And target of this MAT is not every company, rather it is the zero tax companies. And it is way of making companies pay minimum amount of tax. So in this case, we are seeing it is 10%. So it is the government of India which will fix that minimum amount of tax, right? So if you Google tax, right? Google tax means if you see, if you want to, if you are having certain business transactions with any company which is having its offices abroad, for example, Google or Facebook, you are a business entity in India and you are having transactions or you are asking FB to advertise, right? And there will be, for example, this cost is 2 lakhs per annum. You are paid 2 lakhs per annum to Google, right? Now, the the government has come up with the idea of the Google tax. It's not exclusively to the India, rather it's worldwide. There's a provision of Google tax, right? Google tax or equalization levy, and they are saying that if a company which is not having permanent establishment in India, then and you are having a transaction with them, business transaction with the company, then a certain amount of money is to be withheld. For example, this is 2 lakhs, this amount is 6%, and 6% out of 2 lakhs will be deposited with the government of India as Google tax or equalization tax, right? So basically what was happening in the past that there was no clarity because Google is not Indian company. So these MNC says that why you how you can control us, because we should be controlled by the country of our origin. So because of such issues, this Google tax comes into the scene, and it has a provision that you have to withhold 6% of the tax if you are transacting with the Facebook or Google or any other business company which are having no permanent establishment in India. So this is Google tax or equalization tax. When we will be studying black money, then there is a provision of BEPS, base erosion profit sharing. Uh, Basically, Google tax and all such taxes are an arrangement which disallows these MNCs to, which disallows not to pay the taxes to the government in which they are working. For example, Google is earning the profits from India, right? And they keep saying that why should we pay to India? Because we are controlled by the rules of our origin country, right? That means they are not sharing the profits with the government of India, despite the fact that they are earning money from India. So base erosion profit sharing is basically an idea which is about sharing of the profits by these companies to the country of their operation. We'll discuss it in detail when we will be discussing black money, right? Shifting revenue to tax haven countries. Actually, we will discuss it in detail during the time of black money, right? That's why I'm not touching that issue here, right? So now we'll discuss the types of taxation system. That means how we are taxed. So there are three types of taxation system. One is progressive, right? Progressive means if you see the taxation system of India, you will find that in India we are having certain slabs. For example, nobody is paying income tax if he is having income from 0 to 5 lakhs, right? Then they are saying if 5 to 10 lakhs, then he will be paying only 10%. If he is having 10 to 20, then he will be paying something like 20%. There can be some change in these slabs, but for your understanding, and for 20 onwards, the government says that you have to pay 30%. And if any person is ultra rich, then government can have certain rich cess. Forget about this. So you will see that percentage of taxation is increasing with the rise of your income, right? The rise of your income. Yani 0 to 5, no tax, 5 to 10, 10%, 10 to 20, 20%, 20 onwards, 30. So the rate of taxation is progressive in the sense that it is increasing with respect to your income. So it's a tax in which the taxation rate is proportional to the taxable income. Tax rate increases with the increase of the taxable amount 0, 10, 20, 30. People with lower income pay a lower percentage of that income in tax to comparison to the person with higher income. Clear? Because till 5 lakhs, if your income is 5 lakhs, you are not paying any money to the government of India. While if you're having income more than 20%, 20 lakhs, then you are paying at least 4 to 5 lakhs rupees to the government of India, right? So this is basically progressive taxation system. Proportional taxation system is also said to be the flat. That means the taxation rate is fixed, right? For example, irrespective of your income, whether you are having 1 lakh, 2 lakh, or 20 lakhs, it will be 10% of your income, proportional. So the amount given by individuals will be proportional to their income. So in this case, it will be 10,000. For example, in this case, uh, 10,000. This is 20,000, and this is 2 lakhs, right? If the slabs are of 10%, right? This 10% is uniform for all. Right? So it is also said to be a flat tax system, and taxation rate is same irrespective of the income or wealth of the individual. Taxpayers pay a set percentage of their income regardless of total income earned. For example, an income tax of 10% does not increase or decrease with the changes in the income. A regressive taxation system is basically a taxation system which says that it is it is affecting the poor people the most. That is regressive, right? Regressive in the sense that it is affecting the poor people the most. So the best example to understand is, for example, there are two people in the economy and the income of an individual is A who is earning 10,000 rupees per month, right? And B who is earning 1 lakh rupees or 1 lakh, 10 lakh rupees per month, right? Now we have to understand that, for example, this person A and this person B both are consuming a medicine which costs rupees 1,000, right? This is the common expenditure between these two people of 1,000 rupees. Now there is increase of indirect tax on rupees 1,000, 10% increase. Then this medicine will cost 1,100 to both of them, right? Now see the effect of this increase of 100 rupees on both of the person. So you will find that 100 A, how much effect on their income. It will be 1%, right? It will be one. This change in the indirect tax of the particular commodity, it will erode the income of A by 1%. Now take the case of B. So it will be 1 by 100 means 0.01%, right? So the income of this A is eroded by 1% and income of B is eroded by only 0.01%. This is how regressive taxation system works. That means there is no direct taxation in the countries of regressive taxation system. Right? There is no concept of direct taxes. There are only indirect taxes, right? So the countries in which there is only indirect taxes concept, in those countries, the poor people are hit if there is increase in the indirect taxes. Right? So this is the idea of the regressive taxation system. And in if you can, this income taxation is being practiced in many states of US, right? In many states of US, I think California is following it, right? Right. So if you can, if we talk with reference to India, can you recall somebody talked about only imposition of indirect taxes in India? Anybody? Do you have any idea that when this government, I think in 2014, a very popular face talked about the imposition to do away with the direct taxes and imposition of only indirect taxes. And the idea was that it will do away with all the black money. Anyone? Swami Baba Ramdev, right? So he was of the opinion, a lot of deliberations, a lot of studies were into this. I think he was also supported by, there was a right-wing person, if I'm not wrong. I can't recall his name. He's a journalist, right? He was a journalist. And but basically the main proponent of doing away with this direct tax and only continue with the indirect tax was Swami Ramdev. And he was of the opinion that it will do away with the black money in the economy, right? So tax buoyancy, such terms UPSC asks in the exam, that what is tax buoyancy, and you will find these questions terminology even in the mains. So tax buoyancy is telling you about that, for example, if the GDP is changing, right, then what is the change in the tax collection by the government? So tax buoyancy is showing you the relationship between tax collection and GDP, right? So if tax collection, if GDP is increasing as well as the tax collection is increasing, that means there is tax buoyancy, right? That means it is good for the country, right? That means more and more taxes are being collected in the economy. So if you see this, it explains relationship between the changes in government tax revenue growth and the changes in GDP. There was a term which also tells you about the efficiency of the economy, which was it was telling you some sort of relationship between GDP, changes in the GDP to the input. And even there was a term, which was telling you about the relationship between efficiency of the economy, that is input to the output, change in the input upon change in output in terms of GDP. It was similar to this sort of tax buoyancy. That's what I'm asking. It reminds me of that term. Anyone? There was some concept of ICOR, if I'm not wrong. What was ICOR? We have discussed it or not? We have discussed ICOR, I think. Correct. It was inversely proportional to GDP. Good. So ICOR was telling you basically the relationship between change in the input to the change in output. Here, we are trying to understand the relationship between change in the tax revenues to the change in the GDPs. Right? Try to correlate these things, because it is when you are repeating all these things in on a regular basis, then it becomes very easier to understand, and it remains in your mind, right? So this is tax buoyancy, and tax buoyancy is one of the key indicators to assess the efficiency of a government's tax system. It measures the responsiveness of tax mobilization to economic growth. Tax buoyancy depends largely on the size of the tax base. What is this tax base? Anyone? What is this tax base? And what are the issues vis-a-vis the tax base in India? What do you mean by tax base with reference to the tax collection first? And what are the issues with respect to the tax base in India? Anyone? I think slabs. No. See, tax base means the people who are paying the taxes. That's it. Right? The people, tax base means the people who are paying the taxes. And if the tax base is, yes, is broad, that means more and more people are paying taxes. If it is narrow, that means less and less people are paying taxes in India. So what is your opinion why tax base is narrow in India? Anyone? And it is very much talked about in the media. And if you see the people who are paying the taxes, they are always critical of this tax base concept. They are always saying that we, the middle class, who are the salaried class, they are only having more incidence of the taxes because government is not in a position to increase or broaden the tax base. 90% employed in unorganized sector and also due tax avoidance and evasion. Okay, very good. Irregularities, formal and informal. Good. Any particular sector which is not paying the tax? Any particular sector? Do you know that the people who are engaged in the primary sector, that is farming, Even if they are ultra rich farmers, they are not paying taxes, right? Even this thing is being used by the big celebrities to avoid the taxes. So if you can recall the ITR filing of P. Chidambaram, he filed that he was earning crores of the money from kitchen gardens, right? Secondly, if you talk about the mega star Amitabh Bachchan, right? He declared in one of the ITR that he is not liable to pay the tax because he is having the earnings from agriculture, right? And this is one of the reason in India that this people are declaring their income from the agriculture, and because of that, they avoid payment of the taxes. This is very serious issue in India, but the governments can't do anything because it's a huge vote bank, right? The friendliness of the tax administration, the reasonableness and simplicity of the tax rates, right? So if the friendliness of the tax administration means that what is the attitude of the tax administration, right? If they are friendly, then what happens? People try to talk to them, right? When the rules are complex, right, then people avoid payment of the taxes, right? If the rules are simple, then people are interested, they show interest in payment of the taxes, right? If they are not simple, they are complex, then people avoid payment of the taxes. In 2007-8, GDP growth rate was 9%, direct tax is a growth rate of 45%, and tax buoyancy was 5, right? In 2008-9, GDP growth came down to 6%. The tax revenue growth also falls steeply to 18%. So it was 3 for the year. That means tax buoyancy has gone down, right? Tax incidence. Tax incidence is nothing but it is telling you how the burden of a tax is distributed. Means if we say in case of direct tax, when we are studying the direct tax, we see that government has put a tax on you, income tax was imposed upon you, that is A, and you were paying that tax to the government of India, right? You were imposed, right? The government imposed income tax upon you, and you have to pay this income tax to the government of India. While in case of indirect tax, we saw that in the case of that medicine, we saw that government of India has taken, there was whole medicine seller, that is pharmacist. This pharmacist has paid the that indirect tax to the government of India, but finally this tax was paid by either A, B, or C, depending upon who purchased the medicine. So the person, this pharmacist has paid the taxes on behalf of you. Right? That is, final incidence was upon anybody, any other person like A, B, C, but it was paid by somebody else. So tax incidence refers to how the burden of a tax is distributed between firms and consumers. If the person on whom the tax is imposed, right, is have the flexibility to transfer it onto other person, then we say tax incidence has shifted in this case. Tax incidence is upon A, B, or C, but it has shifted to this pharmacist. All indirect tax comes under this category. For all direct taxes, the incidence of tax and burden lies with the same person. This, right? Tax elasticity. This is basically, it is telling you changes in the tax revenues. That means income through taxes in response to changes in tax rates. So if you can recall the 1991 reforms, right? Then I told you that at that time, the taxation rates, direct taxation rates were more than 95%, right? That means if you were earning 100 rupees, then out of 100 rupees, you were only saving 5 rupees, right? And now it is 30%. That means now you can have 70 rupees, correct? Now tell me that this is situation one, this is situation two. In which situation tax collection of the government will increase? Any idea? Out of situation one and two, in which situation the tax collection or tax revenues of the government will increase? Situation two. Anybody for situation one? Okay. Why situation two? Why situation two? When tax are high, may tend to pay, not to pay. Okay. Yes. See, if the taxes are higher, the tax rates are higher, then people avoid payment of the taxes because the taxes are so high. That means if you have to pay 95, more than 95 of the rupees out of your income of 100 rupees only in the form of tax, then you will try to avoid the payment of the taxes. If that rate is comparatively low, that means you will be motivated to pay the taxes. Is the human psychology, right? And it also lead to the corruption because people uh, used to bribe the officials to avoid their arrests, right? Or they may hire chartered accountants so that new methods can be adopted to avoid the payment of the taxes. So this is basically tax elasticity, right? How much change in the tax revenue in response to change in the tax rates. So if the tax rates are decreasing, then it is leading to more tax collection. So there is a graph, which is this Laffer curve, right? This Laffer curve is telling you this relationship, which we have discussed. And it is telling you, if you see, this is tax revenue, right? And this side is tax rates, right? X-axis tax rates and Y-axis tax revenue. So you'll find that this tax revenue is increasing up to this point. This is the maximum point of tax revenue collection by the government. After this point, you'll find that if the government is increasing the tax rates beyond this point, then overall tax collection decreases. See this, right? That means it simply says that if you're increasing the tax rates to 100% or 90%, 95%, then your tax revenue will be reduced to this point from this point. So at this point, this is that tax rate at which the government will be collecting the maximum revenue, right? So this is Laffer curve. It explains a theoretical relationship between the rates of taxation, that is this, and the resulting levels of the government's tax revenue. As per the curve, if the tax revenue increases, the government revenue also increases up to an optimum level up to this point. Post which, if the government tries to increase taxes, the government revenue will start falling like this way. Revenue shortfall can be because of increased rate of tax avoidance, right? Or greater incentive to evade taxes. Tax avoidance and this evasion of tax we'll discuss in black money, but uh, try to understand that evasion of tax is basically resulting into black money, while this tax avoidance is legal, right? Tax avoidance in the Indian economy is legal, and you are using legal methods to avoid the taxes, like what companies were doing in the zero tax companies, right? Zero tax companies. Okay, okay. By zero tax company, I just came to know a term. Nowadays, you might have heard a very popular term, retrospective taxation. Any idea? Retrospective taxation. It's getting very popular. Recently, the government was also referring to this term. They have come up with a regulation regarding this retrospective taxation. Anyone? Tax on old transaction, very good. Right. See, retrospective taxation means that, for example, you are having any if the government of India was having certain rule regarding taxation, correct? And a deal, for example, a deal took place between company A and with any company B, which was foreign company, and the and this transaction took place in 2015. And at that time, for example, the government said that the company, this transaction was to be taxed at the rate of 10%. Now the government came up with a rule in 2017 and said that this transaction will be having 20% of taxation, this transaction between A and B. Now in 2018, government says that, okay, look, we will be charging, or in 2017 when this rate was changed, then in 2017, government asked these companies to pay them 10% amount, because this is the gap of 10%, that these company has to pay 10% amount to the government of India, because now rule says that you will be taxed at 20%. This is retrospective taxation, that you are taxing the companies, the old transaction with the changed laws. That is retrospective taxation. One thing more, there's a term withholding tax. Withholding tax. Withholding. Withholding tax. What is this? Actually, it says that if there is a transaction between A and B, right? And I am the buyer, right? And B is buyer. He is a buyer and A is a seller. Now, withholding tax says that if this deal is, for example, this is a house deal. This A sold the house to B and the transaction was of 1 crore. Right? Now, the government has a provision of 10% of taxation on this transaction, that is in the form of asset, property tax, or whatever it may be, asset tax or property tax. Or then it says that the withhold taxation says that 10% of the amount will be withheld by this Mr. B, that is buyer. That means this B will be paying only 90 lakhs to A, and this 10 crore will be withheld by this buyer, and this 10 crore, 10 lakhs will be deposited with the government of India in the form of withhold tax. And this is a liability of buyer. This concept will be used later on in any of the discussion. So this is a liability of the buyer to withhold certain amount, there's the fixed amount of tax, which is fixed by the government of India, right? And that amount is to be paid by the buyer to the government of India. That is withhold tax. Correct. Cascading of tax. Cascading of tax means simply tax on tax. It is to an extent similar to when we were discussing that GVA part in the GDP, GVA theory. It is almost similar to that part. So what happened in a cascading system, that you are taxing the tax. For example, if you see this example, that cost of goods was 100 rupees and excise duty was added 12 rupees. Now, when this product was purchased by the shop at 112, then when he sold this amount to this lady, then there was imposition of 12.5 VAT, value added tax. Now see the difference. Actually, what happens that this 112, if you bifurcate this 112 amount, you'll find this this 112 is having two components, 100 and 12. And this amount is basically 12 is tax. This is the amount of tax which it has already been paid to the government. Now, if you are counting tax on 112, that means you are paying tax on the tax you have already paid, right? It's okay that you are paying tax on 100 rupees, but if you are paying tax on these 12 rupees, that means you are counting, you are paying the tax on the already paid tax. That's why it is said to be tax on tax. Right? Now see its implication. The implication of paying tax on tax is that it increases the cost. It increases the cost, right? For example, if you are paying only 12.5% on this 112, and if you are again, you are paying 12.5% on this 12.5 into 12 upon 100, 8. So you are paying 1.5 rupees extra, right? Out of this on this amount. So this 14 rupees, you are giving 1.5 rupees extra. So if you see this amount in the huge transactions, it comes out a huge component. So because of this, first it makes things costlier. And when it makes things costlier, that means people avoid payment of taxes. So during the time of this tax on tax, the things were costlier, and that's why people avoid payments of the taxes. And it is said to be, this process is said to be cascading effect, right? Cascading effect, that means tax on tax. So a cascade tax or cascading tax is a system that imposes sale tax on products at each successive stage in the supply chain, from raw material to consumer purchase, right? That means more this chain is long, right? If there are n number of process in this chain, that means at every step you will be imposing tax on the previous paid tax. That means it will be increasing the cost with every increase in the process. Each buyer in the supply chain pays a price based on its cost, including the previous tax or taxes that have been charged. So a cascade tax is a tax on the top of a tax. There's a compounding effect with a real sale tax higher than the official sale tax rate, right? So that means effectively the government was losing revenue, in the sense that people were afraid of paying so much of huge taxes. And again, it was leading to the corruption, in the sense that people were using, people were asking the officials to devise certain methods not to pay such taxes. So this is how cascading of tax works. Tax to GDP ratio. This question I think was asked in UPSC. I think I can't clearly tell you the year. It is basically telling you the relationship of your tax revenue to the total GDP, right? Tax buoyancy was telling you changes, right? Tax buoyancy was about changes in GDP in taxes, GDP to taxes, while it is telling you about totality, absolute terms. It is telling you country's tax revenue related to its GDP. It represents the size of the government's tax revenue expressed as a percentage of the GDP. Higher the tax to GDP ratio, the better financial position the country will be in. That means higher the tax means that the government is earning more, right, from the taxes. Right. That means if again, if you talk about if it is less, that means government has to rely upon alternative sources for the funding. Right. If the government is having higher tax to GDP ratio, that means they are having enough funds through the taxation so that they can finance all the activities at their own without resorting to capital receipts. Correct. So higher tax to GDP ratio desired in an economy. India, despite seeing higher growth rates, has struggled to widen the tax base that I already discussed. But because of this, tax to GDP ratio is always lower in the Indian context. Although India has improved its tax to GDP ratio in the recent past, but it is still far lower than the average OECD ratio, which is 34%. Lower tax to GDP ratio constrains the government to spend on infrastructure and puts pressure on the government to meet its fiscal deficit targets. That is the main concern. If you are having better taxations, better tax amount, tax revenues, that means you will be having less fiscal deficit. So if you see these figures, India's gross tax to GDP ratio fell to 10.9 in 2018-19 on account of lower than estimated GST collection. Correct. So developed countries tend to have higher tax to GDP ratio. Right. I think it's clear. So if you see this example, tax to GDP ratio of Brazil is 35.6, while in the Indian context it is 16.6. And these are the figures of 15-16. And if we talk about 18-19, this 16.6 has again fall to 10.9. Compare this 10.9 to 35.6. Right, Brazil is having 35.6. That means that's why we are saying that we are having fiscal deficit at this point of time more than 9% because all our expenditures are increasing and our incomes are almost stagnant. So this is all about your taxation part. Any query? Any query? Surcharge is also tax on tax, right? Surcharge is also tax on tax. Cess, surcharge. Is it the same where India recently lost Vodafone case? Yes, it is related to basically Vodafone case. The bone of contention between such issues, all the issues is basically that Vodafone Hutch case. If I got time, I'll discuss it with you. I think in Black Money, huh? I have to discuss it. I'll discuss it. Even where have you posted that question? Seriously, I didn't see it. Have you posted? Please ping it to me one on one because when I was even today I got late because I couldn't find the link today. Please ping it me one to one. I got late today by 2 or 3 minutes because I was seeing that the link today and I was confused. Right. Any other question? Mm. If foreign capital enters Indian market, okay, or it is related to EODB. I'm unable to come. See, simple. You have to apply the demand and supply method. Correct. Wait, it's not working here. Wait. See here. In such cases, you have to simply see, you are saying that FDI is increased, right? FDI, I told you when FDI is increased, that means there is inflow of dollar, right? That means supply of dollar is increased, right? I told you, you have to talk relatively. Dollar increase, amount of dollar increase. On the other hand, relatively, the amount of rupee decrease, it is relative, right? When this is more, this is less, then what will happen? What will happen? Simply rupee will strengthen. Rupee strengthened. Simply apply the logic. Demand supply logic. Rupee will strengthen. So what you are saying is, I'm on then appreciate, right? So you have to apply the logic, which the things which are oversupplied, that means if dollar is oversupplied, naturally it will be weakened, because it is relative. We are studying only relative things. If rupee is oversupplied, that means it will weaken. That's it. Simply it's all about demand and supply, nothing else, right? So we'll be meeting tomorrow. Thank you very much.